Alright, let's dive into something that's been bubbling under the surface but deserves way more attention: the DOJ's increasing use of conspiracy charges against ICE protesters. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, let me just say, this isn't just about legal technicalities. It's about the bigger picture of how protest, power, and politics collide in America today. Personally, I think this trend is a canary in the coal mine for where we're headed as a society. Here's the hook: imagine you're sipping coffee on your couch, still in your pajamas, when a knock at the door changes everything. That's exactly what happened to Treasure Thorson, a special education teacher in Minneapolis. She opened her door to find Homeland Security agents with a warrant for her arrest, on conspiracy charges. Conspiracy. Not for violence, not for property damage, but for allegedly being part of a group that protested ICE activities. What makes this really interesting is the broader context. This isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a growing pattern under the Trump administration, where the DOJ is dusting off a civil war law to go after protesters. And let me tell you, this raises a deeper question: are we criminalizing dissent under the guise of law and order? Now, let's break this down. The statute in question, 18 U.S.C. Section 372, was originally designed to deal with obstruction during the Civil War. Historically, it's been used sparingly. But since 2025, the DOJ has charged over 36 people in at least 10 cases, all related to protests against federal immigration enforcement. What many people don't realize is that this isn't just about ICE. It's about how the government is redefining what constitutes a conspiracy. Traditionally, conspiracy requires an agreement to commit a crime. But here, it seems like simply showing up to a protest and engaging in civil disobedience could land you in federal court. From my perspective, that's a slippery slope. Take the Spokane case, for example. Protesters blocked a van transporting detainees, and 9 of them were charged with conspiracy. 6 pleaded guilty, but 3 fought it. Jack Archer and Bajuan Mavawala, 2 of the defendants, weren't even accused of violence or property damage. Yet, they were convicted. What this really suggests is that the government is casting a wide net, potentially lumping in people who were just exercising their First Amendment rights. I mean, if you take a step back and think about it, this isn't just about these individuals, it's about chilling future protests. If people fear conspiracy charges for nonviolent actions, who's going to show up next time? One thing that immediately stands out is the political undertone here. Before 2025, this statute was mostly used against far-right groups like the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, particularly after January 6. But now, it's being weaponized against activists opposing the Trump administration's immigration policies. In my opinion, this feels like a strategic shift, using the law to target political opponents. And let's be real, that's a dangerous game. It's not just about immigration or protest, it's about the erosion of democratic norms. A detail I find fascinating is the role of prosecutors in all this. Richard Barker, the acting U.S. attorney in Spokane, initially resisted conspiracy charges but resigned before the indictment was signed. His successor pushed it through. This isn't just bureaucracy, it's a human decision with massive consequences. Barker later called the case a civil war law dusted off to punish members of our community. That's a powerful statement, and it makes you wonder, who's really calling the shots here? Is it justice, or is it politics? Now, let's talk about the broader implications. Katie Schwartzman from Protect Democracy nails it when she says these indictments are an attempt to scare Americans. And honestly, it's working. People like Jocelyn Walsh, a musician charged in Illinois, describe feeling rattled by the experience. Even though her case was dismissed due to prosecutorial misconduct, the damage was done. This raises a deeper question: how much fear is too much? At what point does law enforcement become intimidation? Here's where I stand. Personally, I think this trend is a symptom of a bigger issue: the criminalization of dissent in an increasingly polarized America. Protests have always been messy, but they're also a cornerstone of democracy. When the government starts treating nonviolent activists like criminals, it's not just the protesters who lose, it's all of us. What this really suggests is that we are at a crossroads. Do we want a society where dissent is met with dialogue, or one where it's met with handcuffs? So, here's my closing thought: this isn't just a legal story. It's a story about power, fear, and the future of protests in America. If you're someone who cares about free speech, civil liberties, or just the direction of our country, this should be on your radar. Because if we don't pay attention, we might wake up in a country where the line between protester and criminal is blurrier than ever. And that's a future I, for one, want to avoid. What about you?